and welcome back to the Just Follow Joy podcast. My name's Ariana Joy. I'm your host, and I'm a human design reader and teacher. And it is 7:21 a.m., and I felt super inspired to just get into work and record a podcast episode today, which is not me. I'm usually not up until like 8 a.m., so this is a different approach for me. But I was really excited about talking about this. It has been on my mind recently because if you don't know me or you're new around here, I do not really like social media, or at least in the past, I have not enjoyed social media, especially not for my business. So I left for quite a while, and I was planning on not being on social media probably forever. I mean, there was a part of me that thought, maybe I'll go back at some point, but it has to feel completely pressure-free. And now, after even putting in one of my courses that I hate social media and I hate all of it, and that's why I don't do it, I am now back on social media. But it's with a very different flavor. It's for a different reason. And it's with so much more joy. And the experience has been so different for me that I really wanted to talk about it, because I think that a lot of people will probably be able to connect with this and the reasons that they are struggling with social media, specifically with running a business, will probably be pretty similar. And I will tell you now that most of this conversation will be around promoting a business, but this could be really for anything, just any kind of connection with social media overall. So I want to start off with why I left social media in the first place. So first thing is that, like I said, I never have been a big social media person. It's never been my jam. It's not that I didn't get it. I just never connected with it. I just didn't like it. I guess I didn't like the vibe. I have never loved the culture around social media. And you could say, well, Ariana, there are like a million cultures on social media because it's like all different kinds of people. It's humanity online, and humanity has so many different pockets to it. That's true. But I have always felt like it was just a hotbed for a lot of toxicity. And the internet on the whole can be, humanity on the whole can be, right? Depending on how you look at it. But I just wasn't a huge fan of it. I didn't like looking at my screen all the time in that way. I don't have a problem with looking at screens. Trust me, I watch a lot of TV. But it just never really clicked for me. I never really liked it. I never liked updating people on it. I never really liked feeling like I was pushing to be seen with my life, partly because I never felt like my life was that interesting that people would pay attention anyway. So in my personal life, social media was never really a big thing. And on top of this, okay, this is really what it is. I'm tuning into this now. It's that social media always felt like pressure for me. Pressure to keep up, pressure to show that you're keeping up. What are you doing? Is it interesting enough? Are you being seen as much as the other girl in your sorority? You remember how we were in that sorority together? You know our shared experience where we were both in the sorority. Sorry, that was a very personal example. But you get what I'm saying. And so it just always felt to me like it was showing me how behind I was in life. I've always felt very slow, always, in different parts. I've always felt like, it's funny, I felt like a small adult as a child, but I always felt that I wasn't quite up to where my peers were. I don't want to say maturity-wise, but just developmentally, I guess. And I didn't like feeling this pressure of fitting into social media and making my life look correct according to this platform that I didn't really get and I didn't really connect with. Like, it felt just, as soon as I got on it, just gross. Like, it wasn't for me, and it was never meant to be for me to share my life, especially because for a long time, the people around me, I didn't feel like they wanted to know, like people I went to school with, they didn't care. So I was like, okay, this is just, I don't want this. And then when it came to my business, I had so many experiences in my past jobs with social media being so ineffective for businesses. So I actually worked at a small social media agency as an intern before I became a copywriter in my first job. And I didn't really see much of an effect there. And that's even when the rules were very different online, and you could be seen with doing a lot less with social media. And I just didn't see this taking off for the businesses that we were doing this for. And I didn't even see, honestly, my boss at the time was a social media manager, and she couldn't even get like her own social media presence going. And I kind of thought, all right, this seems a little bit like a scam or a joke. And I just was not drawn to it intuitively. And then also had these experiences outside of that where I didn't feel like it was playing out and successfully in real life. And that was even when I was putting so much effort into doing things the quote unquote correct way with social media. That was a big, big reason why I didn't like it, but I didn't realize I didn't like it. I was just so trained by the people I worked with, which is not their fault. They were trying to help me because they thought this was how it worked. To believe that unless you shared in a certain way, in a certain format, if you followed all the trends, if you just nailed the structure of social media, then you would succeed. And if you didn't, you would fail. No one would see you. No one would care about your content. It was almost like it didn't matter what you were sharing unless the way you were sharing it. So the how, like the details, the strategy was just on point. Like it didn't matter what the content you were creating actually was, as long as it was made into eye candy, which is also another reason why I hated social media. And one thing I still don't like about it is that it's so focused on short attention spans that a lot of the time what people share, it's not as helpful as it could be, in my opinion, because it's really more focused on just getting eyes on it rather than sharing information in a helpful way. Does everyone do this? No, definitely not. I follow a lot of people who have great content that's super informational, and just in bite-sized pieces that are easy to understand. But I think that so many people have lost value in the name of form especially on places like Instagram or like TikTok, because what they're trying to do is just, and I mean, they're playing the game. It's not their fault. This is how people expect social media to work, where they're getting these snippets that don't actually give you that much value and that much information, but because you're eating up so much of it and consuming so much of it, you feel like you're getting a lot, when really you're just getting a hit of seeing the next thing. And that really frustrated me because I really just want to convey information. Like, I'm not interested in snappy attention getting kind of things. I just want to share the content and the value with you, right? I understand the importance of form. I was a copywriter. I understand that using words in a way that really speaks to people in a form that they can understand is going to help the content speak to them more because it's in a more understandable way. But it's not the whole thing. And I think that that's forgotten in social media a lot. And that was a hugely frustrating thing to me because it's like, okay, yeah, we're putting out all this content, but is it even having an impact? Because are these people even taking the time to actually pull the information out of this? And if you're on social media, I'm not saying you're a big dum-dum who doesn't do that, that you just scroll all day like this pleasure-seeking creature. But I think that's the culture there. And then also when I had my first job, which, I'm so grateful for it. I'm very grateful for my boss and the people I worked with, but I made it very clear to my boss, I did not want to do social media. Please do not put me on this. I'm a copywriter. I will write, I will create emails for you. I'll create website copy for you. I'll do landing pages, anything. I don't want to do social media. And then, of course, I was put on social media. And that's not to say that like other people, if any of my former coworkers are listening, like we all know at that company, like we all wore a lot of hats. We all did things we didn't like. So it wasn't just me. And I sometimes feel bad about complaining about it because I had like some of the least responsibility. But my point is, God, I'm getting really off on a tangent here today. Maybe this is why I don't record this early. But my point was that I ended up doing the social media and hating it because it just wasn't, I didn't have any soul behind this brand. I didn't get to express myself at all. And it was just like so zipped up. And I also didn't know what I was doing with hitting certain metrics for the way that they wanted to do social media and the people they wanted to reach. So we were working with like all these social media gurus who I just like hated their style. It was like very old style business. And so I got very put off from this. And I also just didn't really care about going viral once I had my own business. I was like, I just want to speak to the right people. I love writing. I love long form content like emails and blogs and then eventually podcasts. So social media is not the place for me. I don't want to do this. So all of this is to say long-windedly that I went into my business really never planning to have social media. when I met Kelsey Abbott, she had just left social media, and Kelsey has always had a very big influence on how I understand business and work, especially because we were both generators. And Kelsey was my coach, and I consider her my mentor. So, I took a lot of that on, and I'm very grateful for it because Kelsey has shown me how many different ways we can approach business. And it doesn't have to be like everyone else. That's a really big part of Kelsey's chart, actually, with channel 4629 in her human design chart, which is called succeeding where others fail, but it's also calling failing where others succeed. So if Kelsey tries to force herself to act like other people and not just stay in the moment of what brings her joy, then that's what's going to slow down her progress. So that's something that's really important for her in her life, and that she really shows for other people, that it's really okay to do it your own way, even if it just does not look like how other people are doing it at all. And no one, including yourself, really understands why this is necessary for you, but it just feels good, so you're doing it. So this whole thing of not starting with social media was, to me, a huge blessing, because I didn't put so much of what I thought was my success based on metrics from social media, and get really caught up in that. However, it really did pull me away from, sharing on social media for a really long time. And, my business did grow on its own. I didn't need Instagram. I didn't need Facebook. I would call YouTube a social media platform at this point. But what happened was eventually I did feel like, what if I just tried it, right? I'm a 5-1 profile, but I have a lot of 3-line energy in my chart, which is experimentation, just trial and error, just doing it to see, just fucking around and finding out. And so I said, what's the harm? I'm just going to go onto social media and try. And it doesn't really matter if I gain any traction here. This is just to see how it feels, what happens, what kind of result I get. And so when I went on social media, unfortunately what happened, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if this happens to other people too, or maybe they just go on immediately assuming this, but the thing about social media is that the more you are on it, the more you see people who tell you that you have to be on it to succeed with your business, because a lot of those people think that. And you'll even hear that when you're not on social media connecting with people. Oh, you don't have social media for your business? How do you grow your business? How do you get any clients? I was in a business reading business coaching session with someone. And she was like, how do you get any clients for your business? And the truth is that almost none of my clients have ever come through social media, even when I was on it. And that could be for multiple different reasons, which we'll talk about in a second. But so it gets to this point where even if you're on social media, even if you were on it because you just want to see what's happening and whether it's fun for you or not, it gets to a point of I have to do this. And it's a lot of pressure and it's not fun. And what happens when you act from pressure, especially as a generator or a manifesting generator, we are supposed to only do things really not for the outcome. We're supposed to do it for the process. And because, this just lights me up. And then indirectly in some way, or sometimes directly, that attracts the result that we're looking for, that allows that to enter our aura for us to manifest it. And so what happened with me with social media is I started getting so focused on, am I getting clients from this? Who's viewing this? Are these getting likes? Are people responding to this? When people ask me questions, do they then feel convinced enough that my stuff is interesting and worthwhile that they'll go and buy something from me? And this got me in a headspace that was so unproductive and not conducive to success for a generator. And it was a struggle. And I was in the cycle where I felt I have to be on social media, but fuck, I hate it so much because it's not giving me what I want. And also I feel so cramped in my style because I feel like I have to share it in this way that works on social media, and I don't like that. And all I really want to do is just share and get this information out there and feel like it is answering questions and making an impact and growing my business too. And as a 5-1, something that can really annoy me is that, I'll just be honest, is that people see me as a textbook, which is great sometimes. But a lot of the time people just kind of want to use me as a textbook. They want to use me as an encyclopedia and expect me to answer all their questions. So they will ask me a million questions and then be like, okay, great, thanks, bye. Any projector can probably relate to that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but are you going to buy something from me? Because I love sharing information, but I was feeling a little used on social media because people will just ask you anything on there and then they'll just expect you to give them so much free shit. And I get it, like I don't really begrudge people this, not actually. It's because I was in this headspace where I'm like, oh, everyone just keeps asking me questions and then they don't actually buy anything from me. So I was going onto social media with this purpose of like sell, buy, sell, and not really getting that. So I was getting so frustrated. Then when I just felt so used by people, and I also would get I would get messages from people being so fucking presumptuous. Sorry, I'm not that angry. I'm just thinking about this. I'm like, I would never do this to someone. I remember getting a message from someone who didn't know me, and she just like sent me her chart, and she was like, hey, I don't know what this means, so could you give me a little help? And I'm like, who are you? I'm like, you didn't say hello. You didn't ask me if you have any offers. I charge $400 for a reading, And so I was seeing a lot of that, but to be fair, it's because I was going into social media every day thinking like, oh, no one appreciates my work. Everyone wants stuff from me. Everyone's a hustler. And hey, it's hard out there for a hustler. I get it. So all of this was, creating this environment for myself that was just so not fun. And I was getting so over it. And I felt like I was not making an impact or being seen on social media, which I think so many people, especially business owners, can connect to. Like, I'm just not, this isn't being seen. This isn't being appreciated, not just because of the algorithm, but because it's just not, lining up with people. And it was really frustrating. Also, this is going to sound really silly to a lot of people, and it sounds kind of silly to me now, but I just didn't want to get yelled at anymore on social media. I feel like because people can respond so quickly to things on social media and then move on, right? Like, it doesn't take that much effort. They can just comment their opinion or lame or whatever, just something mean or toxic that of course they wouldn't say in real life, right? They wouldn't have the balls to do that. Because they can do that, the comment section can get so rough. And for some reason, I just kept attracting, and this is probably my 5 line, like I kept attracting very opinionated people who had nothing to do with human design. The 5 line is very universal. It's very universalizing, which means that it kind of speaks to a lot of different people and will reach a lot of different people. And then also, this is just how Instagram works when it doesn't understand your audience too. It just puts you in front of everyone. Sometimes it just does that just to test things out too. I would get like these random, I don't want to upset anyone here, but these random like right-wing politicos being like, the liberal agenda. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not what we're talking about here at all. This is not a political page. I don't understand why this upsets you so much. And just like really saying, and like, I just had some really, rude comments that I took very personally. And I know this sounds silly though, because I didn't realize this happens to everyone. And I didn't realize you don't have to take it so personally, because it is so not about you, which again, we'll talk about in a second. But I was just so tired of it. I was tired of feeling like I had to filter my message, and that, if I didn't, immediately people would come and attack me. And even if I was saying the same thing as someone else, then it was like gonna be taken out on me. And I was like, dude, there's like a bigger person who's saying shit like this. Why are you attacking me and not them? Who knows, right? That's not really the point. And that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But that's what I was feeling. And so I was trying to protect myself, because I just didn't want to be attacked anymore. I didn't want to feel like every day I was going onto this platform where meanies would come and find me, because people decide to be on my email list, or they decide to look up human design and find my website, right? But people do not always decide to see us on social media. That's not the way the algorithm works. So it can put you in front of people who didn't expect to see you and honestly did not want to see you and would very much like to tell you that. And because so many people who want to share their opinions just like go on social media instead of going online anymore, or they go on YouTube or something, it wasn't happening as much when it's just like who I shared with my email list. Because I could just tell people on my email list, like, just get off the email list, dude. Which I could also tell people on social media, but I didn't realize. So it felt a lot safer for me to just share within my bubble, my email list where people have opted in, my website where people wouldn't find me unless they looked up human design purposefully with the intention of learning about it or finding things out about it. My podcast, where it takes effort to get information out of this rather than just it being presented to you and then you can comment on it or reshare it with a note being like, this dumb bitch, So with all this said, I decided, you know what? I don't want to be on I don't want to be on these platforms anymore. I'm going to take a break. I know that almost none of my clients come through social media anyway, so I'm just going to leave. And once I made that decision, it was pretty easy because honestly, I've never been super attached to using Instagram, which is really the only thing I use, because Facebook is like a wasteland. What is even going on there? And I wasn't using YouTube. TikTok made me want to throw up. It was so not an environment I wanted to be on. And I always had one foot out the door anyway. So once I made the decision, I was just gone. And I'm so glad that I did this. It was really important for me, not only just for my mental health and my outlook overall, but it was important for me to change my view of social media, because as a mountains person in human design, it's very hard for me to be in something and have all the insights that I need. I really need to get away from a situation and see it from this higher vantage point, or just not be in it to understand it. So this gave me so much clarity, just not being in this stuff. It gave me just silence, time away from the noise. And during that time, I started seeing my business in its entirety in a different way. So I changed the entire way I was approaching my business, which is hilarious that I'm doing this at this point, because the way that I was changing my business was to lead into much more joy. You know, I talk all the time about how important it is to follow your joy, but that was really something that it was honestly at that point more aspirational for me than something I was actually doing all the time. So I really made a very strong effort to shift my approach from doing what is smart and what is serious into what just feels really, really good and lights me up and makes me feel happy, and only doing things for that reason. This year in 2024, I am leaning into that juicy energy, which is, it feels so good. And I finally feel back in flow after pretty much a year of not feeling very much in flow at all. But when I did that, when I really started deciding to take actions completely from this place of joy, I started getting these feelings that I actually wanted to get back on social media, because I would have these short things, these short snippets I wanted to share. And I thought, gosh, a reel on Instagram or a story would be so easy for this. This would be so fast. I wouldn't have to write an email for this. I wouldn't have to do a podcast episode for this. I could just do it and it would be out there. And the people who follow me, who have been following me for a while, they'll see it and they'll like it. And hopefully this will help them. And I also had gotten to a point where I didn't care as much what people were going to say about me. That is something I've done a lot of work on in this past year. Not taking it so personally when people respond with dumbass comments or ask me for free shit or whatever it is, just not taking it personally. Because I'll tell you that one thing that has really made me feel a lot better and helped me to see, and this is going to sound bad, I swear I'm not happy that this happens to these people, but it helped me understand. One thing that really helped me was looking at the accounts of people who I absolutely adore. I think that they are perfect in how they share. I think, how could anyone have a problem with you? They don't. Obviously, you're a genius and little star baby. And then I look at their comments and there are people saying the same things. And I'm like, oh my God, this really does happen to everyone. I don't know how I didn't realize that. With my 5-line, I can sometimes think the world is against me. Everyone always wants to blame me for everything. The youngest child, the one who bears the burden. When that's so not true, right? Everybody goes through that. And so I was ready to not filter my message so much and just get on and share. And finally, the other day, when I was on a run, because I always get inspiration on a run, I had something that I wanted to share about projectors that I thought would be so helpful. And I knew when I shared it, I didn't care if I shared it and someone said some BS. And one thing I'll actually tell you, if you are struggling with this, one thing I realized is that people who have businesses at the level that I hope to have one day, they could not give less of a shit about these random people who post comments. Or if they do, they respond with a comment and move on. Andrea Crowder is someone who does this really well. And I actually thought that she did it in a very very like stony faced sarcasm way, but she actually is just like a really nice person who will just respond with very direct comments and then moves on. It's like, here's the explanation. There you go. These people do not matter. And I don't mean that in an existential way. I'm saying to your journey and your path, if this Leo moon who hates criticism and cannot take a harsh word from others since birth can do this, I promise you that you can too. Just understand, like they're like thoughts in your head that you don't need to engage with. They're not important. They may be triggering, but we're the ones who give them that significance and that importance. And again, I'm telling you this from my own experience. I'm not like preaching this at you without having gone through it myself, because I know it can still be tough. But that's something I think is really important to keep in mind. So I said, okay, you know what? I have decided to just follow my joy, even if it doesn't make sense to me. I decided to follow my sacral center and where my energy is flowing and what feels good. Maybe I don't go back onto social media for good, but I really do want to share this bit of information here. And so I went back on and I shared, and it was so easy and it felt so good. And I have to tell you that now sharing on social media, because I'm not actually going on with this intention of getting clients. I'm not going on with this intention of even growing my business. I'm just doing it to share snippets of information because it is the easiest way for me to do that. Not only do I feel incredibly inspired, before it was a slog, it was a push, it was a grind to get information out there on social media. Now I feel incredibly inspired around that, but also I feel like I'm saying more of the right things because I'm not putting this pressure on what I'm saying to get to a certain result. So I can just say what I actually feel is important in the moment, whether or not I think strategically it makes sense. I can just intuitively share, which is taking me in the correct direction, even if I can't see that with my mind, even if it doesn't look strategic. So I'm feeling so creative and so happy and excited, which is very important for me as a generator. If I want to attract certain things, if I want to manifest something, it's through getting into that feeling. But also this is how I do help people more and how I get that feeling of being very effective, which I was looking for the entire time. It was by interestingly enough, like not actually trying to be that effective, or at least not focusing so much on strategy and how will this be effective. It's just sharing what feels good right now. Before, it did not feel easy because not only was I doing it with this intention of, all right, this is how I will strategically grow my business. This is how I'll get clients. Y'all better buy from me. These likes better translate into sales. I'm not doing that anymore. And then also I'm doing it in a way that feels really simple and natural to me. So because the reason that I'm using this platform is because it feels like the easiest way to share this information, I'm doing it in a way that just feels really easy too. So what I mean by that is before when I wanted to share something on social media, I would write a long caption. I would make a carousel if I felt like that was the smartest thing to do or the smartest way to share information. And while it's good to have, structure and strategy and kind of think about, how will this, how can I best get this information across to other people? And I'm fairly good at that as a 5-1 profile. That's great, but it was really, really stunting my creativity and really, really caging it in. It was making it feel so heavy and so slow because, I want to do this, but then I have to do this and I also have to do it this way. And it would get to a point where I was like, fuck that is just another to-do. I don't want to do that. And I wouldn't. So I was doing things in a way that felt really difficult. And now I'm not. Now I'm just using this in a way that feels really good and easy and expansive to me. And I will tell you that in the past few days since I've been back on social media, first of all, it's been so nice to reconnect with my friends who my like business friends or my online human design friends who this is the main way they communicate with people. That's been great. But also my joy and my creativity have taken this huge leap forward. There's been this giant surge in energy that I feel has been unlocked. And I now feel like it's so great because I have social media as this outlet to use that. And as a generator, even if I don't get clients directly through social media, if this is an outlet that I can use for my joy and this is what feels fun and good and right, this is what makes me more magnetic to my manifestations, the things that I do want, even if I don't see how that's going to come to me. So I feel incredibly excited about this, but I'm doing things differently this time around. So I'm not just doing it in a way that feels good and because the sole reason is that it lights me up. I'm also doing it with as little pressure as possible. So if I don't feel the desire to post about something or that someone needs to hear something, I need motivation. So when I feel that there is an empty pocket in the market or there's an empty space where something is not being filled, I am really motivated to fill that space with information or something helpful or a solution. But when I don't have both that desire and that need, then I'm not going to post. There's no point for me to do that. If it doesn't light me up and it doesn't feel fun and exciting to me as a generator, what's the point? Because that's how I operate. That's how things go well for me. And if you're not a generator, by the way, I've said this many times, but this doesn't mean that you don't do what makes you happy, right? It doesn't mean that you don't follow your joy. That's why Just Follow Joy is not just for generators, manifesting generators, it's for everybody. But remember that for generators and MGs, we really, really have to remember to let ourselves get lost in the process of just something that we easily get ourselves out of by getting into our head. So we just need to really be reminded to follow our joy. But again, if you're a projector, reflector, or manifestor, that does not mean that you are not here to do what you love as well. I'm actually going to throw in another podcast episode to link you to. I'll put it in the show notes. It's called Are Generators and MGs the only ones who are supposed to do what they love? And obviously the answer is no, but I explain how that works there. So that is pretty much it. I just wanted to share my story and my process and what I learned, because I think that a lot of people will relate to so many different aspects of what I've been through and what I've felt. And social media can feel like such a hard thing to navigate, especially if you are like me and you came at it with this history of hating it or really bad experiences with it. But, and if you don't want to be on social media, that's fine. I also wasn't for a very long time. You can still grow your business without it. You don't have to do it. But if you are going onto social media, this is just what I want you to know, is that no matter who you are and what your energy type, what your design, whatever, doing this from a place of joy is always going to be more productive and lucrative than doing this solely from a strategic standpoint. I don't care who you are, generator, manifesting generator or not. You are going to cut off a lot of your magic if you are looking at this only from an I have to do this kind of place. You're going to do that in any situation. If you look at any situation from an I have to do it this way or I have to do this to get what I want kind of place, that is how you're going to cut yourself off from the magic of your design. And just from, if we're looking at this from outside of a human design perspective, the magic of you have this beautiful, creative, manifesting power inside of you. And it shows you how to tap into it by saying this feels good or this doesn't feel good. So when we do something solely because our mind thinks we should, but it doesn't feel good, that's not as helpful as you think it is. As my friend Lindsay Robinson says, and I think I've said this on the podcast before, ever since she said it, but it's not doing what you think it's doing. So as often as possible, wherever you can, do it in a way that feels good instead. So, my friends, this has been a lovely chat, a lovely little chat. I'm going to get on with my day. I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you for listening. You rock, and I will talk to you next time.